Welcome to the Choose on Purpose podcast, where leaders live with intention. I'm your host, Becky Plautz, and today is Strategy Hour. And in case you're new here, that means that I am joined on the episode today from our group program with the Level Up Opportunity in OP. And we have a couple different voices that you'll hear from on our topic about building momentum in your life and business. So today I'm bringing to the table talking about small aligned actions, simple systems, and really those habits that create lasting change. Okay, so the strategy conversation, I always bring an acronym as a framework to kind of shape up the conversation and give us some framework to go off of as we discuss this in the community. And momentum doesn't come from massive effort or consistent hustle. It's really, it grows from those simple systems, as I mentioned, that consistent habits that we, stack up, and a willingness to move forward before everything feels perfect, which in my world, it rarely ever does. So, building those systems and having those processes to support us, make it more practical and help us create more clarity and move into action from that space. So this conversation is really about how staying consistent, even when our motivation starts to fade, builds momentum in our life as a framework. So as we move along, I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently. I'm always feeling this out, like, how are we going to do this? And I'm going to use the momentum method today, which is our acronym is momentum. And as each of the ladies in here shares conversation, I want to ask you to introduce yourself when you share, so that it's kind of around the same frame. So I'm going to go through the acronym and we're going to have some dialogue in here. So the first M, because there's three of them that we'll talk about, but the first M, if you're taking notes, is to make the first move. And momentum always begins with motion, not certainty. I think this is a big misconception, right? That we think about, what happens, but really what it is the motion, the action. We need to make a move. And most people wait for confidence or feeling more certain before they get started with something. And it's good to have a plan, but confidence is created through starting imperfectly. So it could be messy or it could be, more organized, but really it's about getting started and making the first move. So I want to open it up and ask, what's one moment when taking a small first step really changed the direction of something in your life or business? And I'm going to let you decide who wants to jump in first to share a moment where you took a small step that changed the direction of for your life or business, whatever you want to talk about.
I can go.
All right, Kel, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fox. Am I supposed to say anything else? Just my name.
Sure, whatever. I mean, you can share context about who you are more than your name,
Okay.
but
Well, I'm Kelly Fox. I'm a virtual assistant and a Fear Mastery coach. So actually, I was on a cruise with my business coach and several other entrepreneurial women. And someone made a comment about their VA, and I spoke it up and I was like, hey, I'll do that for, less money. And Katerina, my business coach, was like, wait, Kelly, like, are we saying that we're gonna do this? And like, how much you're gonna charge? Who in the room wants to hire Kelly? I got 4 clients right then and there, and now I have several more. And so my VA business was built out of me making that one comment and me being willing to say yes and learn as I
Yeah.
go. And now I'm getting clients all the time, and learning who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with. I've started charging more, and stuff. So that one step of saying,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll step into this, has created a whole new revenue stream and business for me.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's even a big step, right? Even the willingness to say it, that is a small step, but it stacked from there. I mean, one, you were obviously in what we would call maybe the right place, the right time, and surrounded by the right people to say, oh yeah, we actually need that service. That would be supportive for us. So you making the move to just express it and be willing to say it, put that all in motion so that it could start to translate to momentum instead of freezing up and wondering like what's next. That's a great
Yeah.
example. Yeah, well, that's good. um okay, so we'll move to the O. Anyone else think about yours as we're going along, that you can tie this in as we go too. So the O is observe what matters. Observe what matters. So once you've taken action, right? Once the action begins, now awareness becomes super powerful because momentum grows when we notice what actually works instead of what we're assuming may work or what we may be making up in our head of it won't work, I can't do it, I should do something different. All of those, um, you know, thoughts that come as we're working on making a change in our life. So, what signals tell you that you're moving in the right direction? So I would love to ask anyone that wants to share that too. Like, what kind of signals do you see? Is there maybe an energy increase? More opportunities? Kelly kind of made an example, like there's more opportunities were showing up. More conversations might open up. What are the signals that you're moving in the right direction once you have made a move and now you're observing what matters about it?
I'll dive in.
Dive in, Nancy.
I'm Nancy Kelso. I'm the Real Expert, author of Get Real, and I will just share that one of the moments where I just took a step, and again, it was saying it out loud. And I'm a firm believer that when we say something out loud, a lot of times we will know in our heart when it's said how it feels, right? So the moment a moment that I did that was back in 2017 or 18, when I first told somebody I was going to write a book. And the book was not Get Real at the time. The book was a memoir for my family called Acres of Life, which I did write. But when I first told somebody that and saying it out loud, I said, well, I think I'm going to write a book. And their reaction was not what I expected it to be.
Oh.
It was, do you know how hard that is? Like, are you sure you want to write a book? It was like this, saying it like I'm excited, and then almost this drop, right? Oh, maybe I can't. Like, right, maybe this is too hard. But instantly I shifted to, I want to, I believe I can, and this is important to me. And my energy shifted again right away. So that the observation of the defeat for those a period of time and noticing that that was not true for me. Even though
Mhm.
somebody else felt it was going to, and it wasn't that I thought it wasn't going to be hard, but even though somebody else was telling me it was going to be hard, that was not going to stop me. Right. And so observing that, okay, maybe it is, and I still really want to do this. And then observing, just going through that process of, writing that book and what was working and what wasn't. And how I was trying to write like it sequentially. And then I realized that's not necessarily the best way to write a book, and how, and just real, and then listening to what felt right to me.
Mm.
And so I think that's, to me, that's observing what matters. And most of my observations come in how I feel about it without the noise. So really listening to my own heart tells me what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, I love that. I love this example too, because, you know, we do, right? Like when we do share our dream, our business, our next thing, it is important to know who we're saying it to so that, but right, it gave you the extra push to say, well, it does matter to me and I'm willing to do the work, whether it's hard or not. It's important to me. And
Mhm.
now you could put that as a priority and know that you're going in the right direction because it gave you the understanding that, well, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be hard and challenging, and I'm willing to do the work to, by making this move, not just declaring it, but actually doing it.
Mhm. And I think
Yeah.
back to when you started, Becky, with, momentum is being consistent. And I wrote down, because I've been thinking a lot about this consistency, that yes, consistency is important, but being careful that consistency isn't turning into redundancy. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is, I mean, some things it's important to be redundant, right? Like eat vegetables every day or floss your teeth every day or whatever, right? That's,
Yeah.
But I think with dreams and goals, when I think of consistency, I think of consistently taking a step, consistently, moving forward, not necessarily like, how, I'm going to write 15 minutes every day, or I'm going to write for 2 hours a week, whatever style works for you, writing consistently for 2 hours a week, but not having to write the same story over and over again, or not having to rewrite what I've already written so that it'll be perfect, right? So we have to be careful with consistency, because we can be
Mm-hmm.
consistent and not have it be meaningful anymore because it's not serving us. So at what
Yeah.
point does it become redundant versus consistent? And
Yeah.
I'm
Think
just
about
starting to
autopilot.
process this. Yeah, sorry.
No, yeah, you're right. And thinking about that as like autopilot, right? Like, is the thing that you're being consistent with still supporting, where you're going? Or is it just now part of the process that you just do because it's what you've always done? So really being able to track the progress signals that you're receiving as you're doing your observing, not the perfection of it, like you were saying, making sure that you're tracking not just that, oh, you did the thing, but like, is it the right direction still? Because we're on a journey, and we won't take the right steps all the time. So when we're observing what matters, that's where we get to decide, from here, from the reflection point, really, are you tracking those signals that you're receiving and really taking notice of them? So that's good.
Yeah, I love it. And I have more to share, but I know just to get through the acronym, we probably don't have time, but it might surface with one of these other
Yeah.
keywords. So yeah,
Yeah.
well, we might
There's a
come
lot
back to
here.
this.
There's a lot here. And okay, so the second M is make it repeatable. Okay. So and it's going to come full circle here. So momentum requires a system, not our willpower because we can't rely on that every day, right? We have different energy levels, we have, life happening. So this is where momentum really does need some systemization, right? And one successful action becomes powerful when it becomes repeatable and in that systemization way that you don't have to think about it as much and you just really get to track the progress that that action is really making in your life. So what simple systems help you stay consistent even when the motivation disappears in your life or business, right? This could be daily creative time or a weekly reflection opportunity, check-ins for accountability, or habit stacking. These are all simple, what I call simple systems, I guess, to have some consistency that doesn't rely on how motivated I am. So how about you? What simple systems help you stay consistent even when motivation disappears?
I can add to this. My name's Carrie Stromberg, and I teach trauma-informed yoga. This just happened to me this morning. I didn't want to go
Perfect.
to the gym and work out. And I was like, just one of these days I'm tired. And the system in place for me isn't always, it's not consistent with family life. So I just show up, whether I'm going to have a good workout or a bad workout, or even if it's 10 minutes, I just get my butt to the gym.
Mm.
And so it's similar to habit stacking, and it might change on the time. So my system, it used to be time driven, but with appointments and things like that or clients, I don't always have that right time and day set. So it just sort of is a little shuffle. And I try to keep it as consistent as I can because I do believe that consistency is important, like we mentioned, although it's just not always real life for many of us. So even if I'm going to have the worst workout or lift two weights or say hi to somebody at the gym, I got there and chances are, guess what? I'm going to use the equipment and, give myself the credit for showing up and observing how that felt to even get myself there when I didn't really want to go.
Yeah, and that's a win, right? That is a win. And that, to me, that is consistency too. We've been talking about this in the community. I don't know how much I talked about on the podcast already, but just how consistency isn't the same. It isn't about being the same every day, but it is, like you said, it's about showing up. It's about that messy action that it's still focused on where you're going in the sense of today, this is what I can do in that direction. So, and once something works once, right? Like I'm sure you've had many days where you didn't want to go to the gym, right? And like you've noticed, like, okay, I didn't want to go today. I showed up, and maybe that day you did only do a couple lifting weights. And you're like, okay, well, that's what I can do today. And then the other question I would say is to think about if something's worked once and you've kind of pushed through that mindset, we can ask ourselves, how can I make this easier to repeat next time? Right? Because it's going to happen again. Yeah. So what are the things that you could put in place? Maybe your workout clothes are set out, and there's some kind of a process with that habit stacking that makes it a little bit easier knowing that every day I'm not going to wake up and want to do this thing. And it's still something I want to prioritize in my life. It's still important. It still matters to me. And like, how can we make it easier on ourselves to make it more repeatable and build that system more simply? Yeah.
I have a client who always goes and gets a coffee afterwards. So that's like her reward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, we can do that too. Like, what is that for you? So, okay, we're going to move to the E, which is encourage progress. Again, this is about celebration. It's about celebrating the emotional fuel of momentum. Because again, even if we don't show up at our peak state when we do these things, it's still giving you a hit of like the endorphins and the progress that like you didn't necessarily feel like doing it, and you did the thing, and it's still a celebration. It's still a win. So without encouragement, as we're making change in our life or our businesses, right? Progress feels invisible, right? It just, nobody is sitting here cheering you on, every step of the way. This is why that self-reflection and that awareness is so important, because you get to be your best cheerleader too, encouraging yourself to see that you're making progress, because it will feel invisible if you're not measuring or recognizing these things in our life. So how do you acknowledge progress in your life so your brain is recognizing growth? That's the question for encouraging progress.
I feel like this one was meant for Terry Ann. So, and I see that she is off mute. So
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Terry, we can hear you. Did you hear the
Okay.
question?
Yeah, no, I'm just
Okay.
a little circle in the bottom.
We hear you.
Yeah, I think acknowledgement is what keeps my momentum going. Is every day I write acknowledgements, and even if they're just very small steps or pretty I'm not going to say unimportant, because every movement is important, but doing that and not stopping until I have written at least 5 gives me the feeling that, yeah, no matter how much I let the negative notion get into my brain that I was lazy yesterday, I can write 5 acknowledgements and I say, no, I wasn't lazy. I mean, I did these 5 things, and these 5 things push me forward. And so that's how I encourage myself through writing acknowledgements.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a way of building that evidence and actually writing out. And there's such power in seeing what's in our mind. So writing the things down, and then also being able to read what we said, especially when it's an acknowledgement of the action that we're taking or the thought process that we're changing, and recognizing that that's progress. There's so much power in seeing what we were thinking and being able to catch it that way too. And celebration is really training your brain to keep going, to recognize those wins, and to give yourself some kudos along the way, because again, it's a journey. This isn't a whole arrival opportunity, right? We need to look at how can we tell our brain, like, we are making progress over the perfection of arriving to some precipice of success. It is about keeping going, training our brain, giving it something to look for that is positive, because it's going to look for something. So how can you recognize the progress that you're making with those acknowledgments? I love that. That's great. Okay, the N is normalize imperfection. I love talking about how doing it messy, doing it imperfect. This is something that, momentum dies when people believe mistakes mean failure. I'm a firm believer that failure is our opportunity to, see challenge and accept the challenge, that wasn't necessarily the way that it was meant to go. And now I know that. Try again. So the N for momentum is normalize imperfection. And progress actually requires that messy repetition, because we don't know until we go, right? It's taking those action steps. It's recognizing how it's working, what matters, all of those things. So the question is, and I'm going to go to Leah on this, what is something you improved simply? We're talking about simple systems. So what's something you've improved simply by allowing yourself to be imperfect while practicing it?
That feels like the story of my life, first of all.
Well, good. Then we're on the right topic.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I have found is my schedule has become something that I'm learning to normalize through imperfection. So one week, I think I shared in a previous conversation that I overbooked myself. And by the end of the week, I looked like I couldn't even speak in full sentences. I was such a disaster. It was really bad. And then I realized that I let other people control my calendar, and I was not productive that week. It was just a matter of checking boxes and showing up at meetings, but not really being intentional and present. So that made me more proactive for the following weeks. And I've been really good at taking care of my calendar and protecting it and making sure that that doesn't happen again. And for me, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't gone through that imperfect week that made me crazy. And I'm still recovering from emotionally, but I now know that I can't do that. And it's not productive. It didn't, just because I was in a lot of rooms did not mean I was productive. It just meant people saw me, but that was not the best me. So.
Yeah. So many people can relate to that, right? Like overfilling our calendars, overcommitting, if we're not careful to, what part of this is important, the presence, not just the showing up part of that. And repetition creates the competency in our life. So, right, the more we make those choices for our calendars and we see like that did not feel good that week, I was overbooked, I overextended in this area of my life, we can start to get more competent about the fact that I need less on my calendar. I do my best work, more of this energy, and start to make those changes in, what we do want to be repeating. But how much that happens is so often. So normalizing that imperfection, like, okay, sometimes we're slow learners in that way. Sometimes we're really practicing and figuring it out because our energy levels are different all the time too. So that competency is really creating the confidence to continue to make the changes and just keep knowing that it's imperfect and that's okay.
Well, and I didn't beat myself up. I just said, okay, this was bad. I don't want to do this again. And now my affirmation includes my connections will be either income producing opportunities or soul filling. Nothing else will do. I will say no to distractions. So I'm very focused.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. You were gathering evidence. It was feedback, really. And that competency, the feedback that you're receiving about that's building the confidence for you to get more clear about how your schedule is going to work best for you so that you can be seeing the momentum, feeling momentum in your life and business and continuing that, because confidence is the side effect. It happens while we're practicing these things and making these changes along the way of our journey. So that's a great example, Leah, because so many people can relate to that. I know I can, always tweaking the schedule, always looking at what kind of capacity we have, and it changes in the seasons. So that's great. Okay, our T for momentum is trust the process. Momentum often feels slow at first. It's not something that we can recognize all the time. And I think that that's where the consistency compounds, right? It's those aligned actions that we're taking, those small movements. And so the question is, when you have seen consistent effort create results that you didn't like, when? The question is, when have you seen consistent effort create results that you didn't expect? You're like, oh, I'm showing up and I'm doing this thing. Oh, this is actually creating a result. I'm going to keep doing that thing. And I'm going to trust that this outcome, is going to keep going because I'm putting this consistent effort in. Does anyone have anything that they want to share about that?
I think I can share, Carrie, here again.
Yeah.
Continuing education for me is a big one. So a lot of times I have to take classes that obviously I want to take and I love them and I learn and gather more information. And then some classes I'm like, I'm not really sure how this is going to fit in with how I'm teaching or
Mm.
how this will change how I teach or what I'm going to learn. And then I just trust, and I'm always learning something new, or I'm always able to add another thing into my programs and within my client work. So it's just trusting the process of showing up to maybe some things that I don't know really, I guess, why, or especially when you're going towards certain certifications. So, for example, going towards yoga therapy. When you go towards yoga therapy, there's these classes that you have to take because it has to be covered by Yoga Alliance and accredited. So
Mm.
it's really interesting because, yeah, so it's just trusting that many times, and I can say that to myself, I think we can easily talk ourselves out of sometimes doing the work. So it's a lot of trusting the process of showing up and knowing that maybe I don't know the reason right now why I'm showing up or what this is all about, but trusting that in time it will reveal itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think about, I love that, Carrie, because I also think about how, what I've learned on my journey with, continuing to, expand and grow myself personally or professionally is like, we also get what we put in. So when you're going to these continued education or these workshops and these opportunities, you know, you're going in ready to take something away from it. It does matter, even if you don't know the complete outcome, you're going willing to learn something new. And trusting that accumulation of a small action step of maybe I meet someone in the room, or maybe I take one specific thing that is going to make a difference in my client's life in the future with this program. So just as a reminder, like, we take what we want from those experiences, whether we've heard the same thing over and over or it's all brand new content. You can make something out of it if you're going with the willingness to
Learn.
do something with it.
Yeah, learn. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. So the U in our acronym of momentum is upgrade identity. And this is something that my personally understanding how important it is to think about what identity shift happened when you repeated a new habit for long enough, the power that is in that, because our repeated actions are what's reshaping our identity. We're starting to shift those pathways and understandings, and you don't become confident first. Again, this is through the action that we're taking. We're choosing to step out and become confident after we're practicing these actions and building this identity and upgrading that, being the kind of person who does show up even on the days that I don't feel like it, and understanding like that does take repeat action. So what identity shift happened when you repeated a new habit long enough? Does anyone have anything they want to speak to on that? Nancy? Nancy's like vibrating over there.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having this visceral reaction over here because it's something just flashed in front of me earlier today, and now it's showing up again. And when Carrie was talking about trust the process, and I'm realizing that right now I'm in the middle of this process. And I can see it now. And what that is, so back in 2018, when I decided to launch my business, I was originally looking for a name instead of Kelso Coaching and Consulting. I wanted to find a clever name, and so I had this idea it was going to be Real Coaching. And I started researching that and found out that every time you popped in, anything for websites, it would come up with real estate.
Mm.
And I told a friend, oh, I'm thinking this real coaching or real life or something. And she's like, oh, that's kind of weird, right? So I'm listening to other people, not listening to my heart, right? And so I started Kelso Coaching and Consulting, doing that work. And I started creating a program called Unleash Your Inner Leader. And this is I'm just looking, the whole momentum process is like flashing in front of me because I'm observing what worked, how I felt about it. I'm, okay, there's what's repeatable, what are the parts I can put into practice, Well, it ends up that when I create Unleash Your Inner Leader, I end up realizing that it's using my at the time it was reflect, empower, act, and live, or it was another L. And so I'm realizing I'm using this and develop this program, have several teams go through it, still use the program today. And came back to Real and decided to write Get Real. Get Real, reflect, engage in line, and lead yourself to greatness. I started writing the second book. So my whole plan is I'm going to write a series, right? It's going to be Get Real, Get Real for teams, and then lead with reality, right? So I have this whole thing. And I wrote the first book, love it, doing book clubs on the first book. I've got additions to make. There's going to be a second edition of this. And I was writing Get Real for Teams. And I kept going back to writing Get Real for Teams, and it felt so hard. It just felt like it wasn't coming, and maybe Teams isn't for me, and blah. And I kept writing and kept writing. I was being consistent. I was showing up and trying to do the work, right? And all of a sudden, one day when I sat down to write, I was just like, this is not mine to write. Like, I love working with teams because I draw out the best of individuals on a team. But doing teamwork isn't necessarily what I'm the best at. There are lots of experts out there with teams. So I stopped writing it. I mean, I was 3/4 of the way done. And now I'm just enjoying so much about being in these book clubs with Get Real. And what's coming to me is it's time to change the title. So watch for what's coming. And it's the next part of this process. So I'm trusting the process and leading me there. But this morning, the connection that I made and the upgrading identity, right, is I always talk about legacy. And it hit me that Real is part of who I am back from when I was a little girl. And it's something that showed up in a post that I just made about my dad saying he had a PhD in real life. And then I went, Real, oh, there it is. Oh, wait, like the legacy is still continuing because that is what I'm carrying forward, this idea of real. And Becky, 2 years ago, I said, I'm the real expert. Didn't really believe it. And you challenged me. And I kept coming back to that. Like, I want to be the real expert. I want to be the real expert. And that's the identity shift, right? I am the real expert. And I have more to share about getting real, living real, and being real. And I won't pretend to have it all now. I'm trusting the process to take me where I'm meant to go with this. And I feel that. So I was over here just going, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of sticking with this thing that I don't know why I'm sticking with it, but it just keeps coming up and it's there and it's in front of me and it keeps, it's mine to do. Listen, keep moving.
And you're building the evidence for that. Your habits around practicing being and in yourself, knowing that you are practicing being the real expert now, your habits are evidence of who you're becoming. You are the real expert because you've been practicing, recognizing that and seeing yourself in your own process. You start to recognize it in the past that you're like, oh, that's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And the upgrade is that you are acknowledging it now. You're recognizing that in yourself. Yeah. Okay, that the last M of our acronym is maintain momentum. So this is beautiful. So momentum must be maintained intentionally. Again, this is as we're going through these simple systems that we're creating for ourselves, not through pressure, through aligned rhythms in our lives. This is how we maintain momentum, because it isn't just a disconnection of that we're doing this thing just because. It's in alignment with what we're focused on, And so the question really is, what rhythm or practice helps you keep moving forward, even during those challenging seasons where you don't feel like it, or it's not clicking, or fill in the blank? What rhythms or practice really helps you continue on? Is it, a reflection day that you plan out, or resetting those priorities to recognize, like, okay, this is not in the realm of where I'm focused on going right now. And maybe you're focused on reconnecting with that purpose. And like Nancy's example of this isn't the right book, this isn't the direction, this is the thing, and making sure that you're, recalibrating that so that you can maintain a momentum and a rhythm that grows through the gentle consistency instead of like a forced opportunity.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, because I think the maintaining the momentum is a feeling. So when I'm maintaining, it's a feeling of how I feel afterwards, which honestly brings us right back to the motion, full circle. And then I think that's the self-trust. Like, I know when I do certain things, I feel a certain way, or I gain this knowledge, or I work my body and I feel less stressed or less pressure. And I gain more knowledge. So I like the feeling of that. And I think that goes right back to what Nancy's saying when she wrote 3/4 of her book. There was a feeling there that was like, oh, maybe this isn't quite right. This isn't even really what I want, even though we think it is at the time.
And maybe it is, but then,
Yeah.
right, then through the process,
Right. Then, yes.
things are shifting.
Yeah. Yes. All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Leah.
Leah's got something.
Yesterday, I had the privilege of doing a 5-part podcast with Paula Allen. We had a dialogue, and it was around networking. And it was so incredibly, like, I literally, Nancy, I was vibrating all afternoon from the power that was in that podcast. And talk about emotion. It like carried me through the rest of the day. I couldn't sleep last night thinking about how amazing it went. And what it did is, for me, it validated that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so today, the reason I'm late is because I was in a creator mastermind that I'm a part of, because I wanted to take all of that information and try to package it. And so now my momentum is I'm going to finally launch my membership that I've been hemming and hawing and doing. And I'm like, you know what? Even if no one shows up, I'm going to show up. And then eventually somebody will show up. So like, I've been waiting because I'm like, well, I don't have anybody. What happens if no one shows up? What do I price it? Like, I was going through all of these like gyrations. I'm like, I'm just going to figure it out, put it out there and see what happens, because people need me. So
Yeah, that's right. And we got to get in motion. We got to make the first move. No one can be invited if it's not there. Right? That's the hard truth. That no one can come unless it's built, or at least started, or that you can't even extend the invitation if you haven't decided that you're doing the thing. You got to make the move.
And I love that too, Leah, sharing that just from a standpoint of like, the vibration, right? The energy, that's passion, right? And when we stop our passion from moving forward, well, then what's happening to your momentum in all areas of your life? And I think of people who have far less than any of us have, yet they're so passionate about love or about the quality of work that they do, that is what's keeping them moving forward. So I just, the word passion is just really coming up for me that, our momentum is a lot more fun to move forward with when you're passionate. And it doesn't mean we always have to be passionate. But if you're not, the question is, am I not passionate because something's changed, or am I not passionate because I'm a little stuck or I'm unsure right now?
Yeah. So I want to leave all of us with the question of what's one small action that you could take this week to create momentum in your life. That's what I want you to think about as we close out here. And remember that momentum is not built through giant leaps. It grows through the small aligned actions repeated with love. And I like thinking about with passion too, love and passion, when we make the first move, observe what matters, repeat what works, trust the process, all of these things. Let me see. Encourage the process, normalize the imperfection, trust the process, upgrade your identity, and maintain the momentum, right? Our habits become the evidence of who you're becoming. And that's how the real change lasts in our life. And we can even get it started. So start to build that momentum. Ask yourself the question, what's one small thing that you could do this week to create that momentum for yourself? I want to thank all of my ladies in here for contributing to the conversation around momentum. And I want to just say, empower your journey, choose on purpose. And if this resonated with you, share it with someone. Let us know what part of this you're focused on. And until next time, we'll see you then.